Merhaba değerli konuklarımız. Çay Eşliğinde Canlı Bir Arşiv serimizin sonuncusuna hoş geldiniz. Bu projeyi Lars Ebert, Mahir Namur ve ben birlikte tasarladık. Sohbetlere davet ettiğimiz sanatçılar ve katılımcılardan Sinop'ta bulundukları süreçte kurulan ilişkileri, paylaşılan deneyimleri, kazanılan farklı bakış açılarını, bu deneyimlerin bizde geriye bıraktığı duygu ve düşüncelerini anlatmalarını istedik. Bizim gözümüzde işlerin bu görünmeyen kısmı en az kendileri kadar değerliydi. Çay Eşliğinde Canlı Bir Arşiv projesinde amaçladığımız arşivin görünmeyen bu kısmını görünür kılmak oldu. Projeye adını veren çay öğesi de kurulan ilişkilerin bir buluşma noktası gibiydi. Sinop'a davet ettiğimiz sanatçılar Sinoplularla hal binasında, yalı kahvesinde, evlerinin bahçelerinde çay eşliğinde sohbet kurdular. Ekipte işlerimizin arasında verdiğimiz çay molalarında dostluklar pekişti. Programa sizlerin anılarınızı canlandırmak için Sinop'ta çekilmiş birer dakikalık 3 film ile başlamak istiyoruz. Bu filmler 2016 yılı Temmuz ayında çekildi. Katılımcılık bağlamında zorlu bir dönemdi. Sürdürülebilir kentsel kalkınmada sosyal girişimcilik ve yaratıcılık başlıklı proje kapsamında bugün aramızda bulunan konuklarımızdan Stefano Bertacchini'yi ve girişimcilik eğitimi alan katılımcıların birlikte gerçekleştirdiği filmlerdir. Şimdi izliyoruz.
Kültürünü geliştirecek bir platform oluşturmaya çalışıyoruz. Bu platformda lokanta kısmında yapılan yemekler sunulacak ve atölye kısmında yeni yemeklerin geliştirilmesi için atölye çalışmaları yapılacak.
Merhaba, adım Ezgi. Yeni Sinopluyum. 7 aydır Sinop'ta yaşıyorum. Sinop'a ilk geldiğimde Sinop'ta tanıştığım ilk kişi bana Hal'den ve Sinopale'den bahsetti. Bu yüzden Hal benim için çok önemli bir yer.
Hal projesi benim içinde bulunmak istediğim, yaşamak istediğim şehri yarattığı için, bunu kendi kendimize birlikte yarattığımız için çok önemli.
Sinop'un çok fazla geleneksel yemeği var. Ama ben yeni burada yaşayan birisi olarak bunların çok farkında değildim. Çünkü Sinop'ta geleneksel yemekleri bulabileceğim bir yer yok. Mutfak gelecekte bunun sağlayabilecek bir yer.
Hal Kültür Sanat Birimi, çeşitli insanların bir araya gelerek sergi, festival gibi etkinliklerin yapıldığı bir birim.
Sinopale, atölyeler, performans, gösterimler, birçok şey yapıyoruz. Benim spesifik olarak yaptığım şey ise bir film festivali düzenlemek.
İsmim Çağatay, Sinopluyum. İstanbul'da üniversite okuyorum. Hukuk fakültesindeyim.
Ben Emre, sinemacıyım. İstanbul'da yaşıyorum ama yazları Sinop'ta geçiriyorum.
Benim için Hal'i özel kılan tarafı yıllardır buranın hayalini kurmamız ve projeler üretmemiz.
Hal ekibine katıldım çünkü burada birlikte çalıştığımız insanlar çok açık görüşlü ve birbirine karşı saygılı insanlar. Bu da bende bir gruba ait olma hissi yaratıyor.
Hal tabii ki gelecekte Sinop'un bir modeli olacak ve biz de şu anda bu projelerde bunun kıvılcımını başlattık.
Hal Dükkan projesi unutulmaya yüz tutmuş zanaatlerin kişiye özel tasarımlar gerçekleştirilerek hem hatırlatılması, canlandırılması, üretilerek halka sunulması istenilen bir proje. Hal benim için özel çünkü Sinopale sayesinde Hal'le tanıştım. Hal benim için bir birliktelik çünkü benim gibi düşünen insanların bir araya geldiği bir mekan. İnsanların getirileri çok pozitif, çok olumlu. Bu pozitiflikte yer almak istiyorum. Bana göre Hal gelecekte bir anne olacak. Bütün bünyeleri yani farklı materyalleri içine alıp hepsini koruyan, yeni şeyler öğreten, insanlara deneyim yaşatan bir ortam olacak.
Çok güzel paylaşımlar bu filmlerde izlediklerimiz. Benim de Sinop'la ilk tanıştığım yıllara yakın bir zamanda olmuştu bu. Onun için çok güzel anılar canlandırıyor. Sinopale 8'in iki temel kavramı arşiv ve ileri dönüşüm idi. 11 küratörümüz Sinopale sürecinde yapılmış yüzlerce çalışmadan bir seçkiyi sanatçılarından bugünün bakış açısıyla yeniden değerlendirmelerini istediler. Bu değerlendirmeler kimi zaman yeni bir belge ortaya koydu, kimi zaman da çok samimi kayıt altına alınan sohbetlerde beden buldu. İşlerin üretim süreçlerinde Sinopale ruhuna, işlerin üretim süreçlerine ve Sinopale'nin ruhuna ışık tutan bu belgelerle Sinop'un kültür arşivi çok zenginleşti diye düşünüyoruz. Oluşturduğumuz bu arşivin sadece bir bellek arşivi olmasını istemedik. Aynı zamanda işlevsel bir arşiv olması da bizim için önemliydi. Dolayısıyla bu işlevsel arşivin önümüzdeki zamana ışık tutmasını, üretken, dinamik bir arşiv olmasını istedik. Katılımcılık Sinopale'nin en başından beri üretim süreçlerinde çok merkezinde yer alan bir kavram. Sanatçı, küratör ve izleyicinin rolleri zaman zaman birbirinin içine giriyor, sınırları inceliyor ve zaman zaman hatta yok oluyor diyebilirim. Birlikte düşünülen ve birlikte üretilen eserler sadece ortaya çıkan eseri değil, o iş sürecini ve sonraki ilişkileri de çok zengin kılıyor. Bu son oturumumuzda Avrupa Katılımcılık Akademisi'nden 6 konuğumuzla birlikte olacağız. Avrupa Katılımcılık Akademisi 3 yıl süren bir çalışmaydı. Bir grup Avrupalı Eğitim Kurumu ve Kültür İnisiyatifi'nin kültürel farklılıklara rağmen birlikte var olmada kültür ve sanatın önemli rolünü ortaya koyan ve katılımcılığın sunduğu olanakları ortaya koymayı amaçlayan bir çalışmaydı. Konuklarımız bu proje süresince oluşmuş network üyelerinin bir kısmı. Bugün bizlerle birlikte oldukları için çok mutluyuz. Teşekkür ederiz geldikleri için. Chrissie Tiller, Cesare Davolio, Binyon, Stefano Bertacchini, Steve Tiller ve Renée Turner bugün bizimle. Hoş geldiniz. Bu oturumun moderatörlüğünü Hollanda Willem de Kooning Akademisi'nde dijital medyada kültürel miras, bellek ve arşivler konusunda kıdemli araştırmacı Sayın Renée Turner'a vermek istiyorum. Hoş geldin Renée.
Hello, thank you for that introduction. We received a translation, so we'll just begin from there. So I hope you do all have your tea, because this is supposed to be a tea time. What our group decided to do was to sort of weave together different practices and approaches through a set of quotes. And what I would like to do is to first begin with Chrissie. She has chosen a quote of Mary Jane Jacob and is thinking through reciprocal generosity. So let's start with that.
Okay, thank you, Renée, and thank you everybody for having us here. And yeah, thank you for all the time we've been able to spend with you in Sinop and as part of Sinopale, which I remember I was first introduced to in about 2006 when I came to Istanbul and heard about one of the early versions, and then invited Sinopale to present at my own conference in 2010. And so it feels like an ongoing relationship. And what's been wonderful about it is that when I brought people to introduce Sinopale to the UK in 2010, it was because what I saw in the project was something that was ongoing, something where artists would go to Sinop and they would work with community, but also when they would come back and bring things themselves. So that I really saw in it something that was both embedded and reciprocal. And it was a joy to think that we could go and take part. At the time we were taking part, of course, there'd been an attempted coup. So many people were not feeling like crossing Europe and not attending. And so I think, in fact, it made that feeling of reciprocity even more intense. You know, and we're talking about cups of tea today. And one of the things that became really important as part of our time there, and partly probably because of the political and social situation, was that people kept inviting us for cups of tea. And I've got my own cup of tea here. And for those of you who probably can't read it, certainly it's difficult, and it's in English, but it says you can take the lass out of Yorkshire, but you can't take Yorkshire out of the lass. And I come from Yorkshire in the north of England, and it's a little sort of saying that we have, that, you know, you never lose a place once it belongs to you. And I think this is really the sort of feeling that you get from being in Sinop, that, you know, you're having cups of tea with people, you're meeting people, and people really valued our being there was as important as anything we did. So fishermen would invite even I to come and have cups of tea with them. People suddenly having a picnic on the cliff would say, why are you here? What are you doing here? Come and have a cup of tea with us. And in particular, the older ladies up the road, I had cups of tea with. And although they didn't speak English and I didn't speak Turkish, we began to have what I felt was a reciprocal exchange and a conversation, because suddenly we would exchange photographs of our children, our grandchildren. They would find a child who spoke a little bit of English that they were very proud of. And we were able to I was able to get a sense of those women and the sense of the connection of those women with my own mother, who was an ordinary working woman, and her stories. And therefore it gave something back to me. And I think this is what's really important in social arts practice, and that you see so much in Sinopale, that we do have that sense of people really being engaged with the place, with the participants and the stories, but also always bringing something back and taking those stories back into their own world and their own lives. And this is why I think having an archive of this is so important, and why I'm so delighted to be part of that.
This actually connects to Steve's quote on connection. Are you there, Steve? I don't see him.
I'm here.
Okay. Do you want to speak about this idea of connection?
Yeah, I mean, we in the preliminary meeting we talked about it. I talked quite a lot, in fact. One of the things I didn't say about connection was going somewhere, because you know, I'd never been to Turkey before. I'd never been to Istanbul before. I'd never been to Sinop. So actually going to the country, going to a place, going to a region, going to even just a part of town that I live in, helps me to connect. The people who won't connect with refugees are people who just won't go there. The people who won't connect with, I mean, I think I mentioned before we had the Brexit vote, the day before we had the Brexit vote in London, I was walking across in front of King's Cross Station, and a woman came up to me and handed me a leaflet and said, do you know that 60 million Turks are going to come to England if we don't vote against the EU? So, I mean, and this was just all rubbish, you know, how people can say that kind of thing and be believed, and that can be repeated and so forth. So, you know, I mean, I'm just a big believer in going somewhere and connecting with people, just, you know, just being in the country, being in whether it's Japan or Uganda or Cairo or Gaza or wherever it is, just to be there and just to pay attention and to try and talk to people and just see for yourself what it's like. And that, I think, helps build connections. That's really all I've got to say.
It's actually nice that because in a way reciprocity requires that kind of connection.
And when I went to Gaza, for example, and worked there just after the Israeli bombing in 2014, and the year after, I went for 6 weeks. I was only there for a short time the first time round. People were just amazed that someone had come from Europe, and it was like sort of welcome, thank you for coming. I had the same thing when I went to Lebanon just after the Israeli bombing in 2006. I went to the Hezbollah rally. Like there were 2 million people there, you know. It was a victory celebration because they kicked out the Israelis, and there was a kind of thank you so much for turning up. And I was with a couple of other, an Italian guy actually, and you know, someone from the region, and people were just pleased to connect. You know, connection is everything, really.
I have to say a quick goodbye to Maurice. He said he had to go. And to come to this kind of connection and immersing yourself in a place, let's go to Stefano and Cesare and also connect to the films. You have to unmute yourself, Stefano.
Mute here. Oh, do you hear me now? Yeah, no, it took a while. It's the first time I do a Zoom meeting on my phone, so apologies for that. And I'm taking a break for my partner birthday party, so I'm here at the restaurant. So again, I'm sorry. Yeah, I came in when Chrissie was talking, and I think your question was about participating, Renee.
Well, just thinking about connecting to both Chrissie's point about reciprocity, and then Steve's kind of discussion on connection and curiosity in the other, and then thinking through the little documentaries that you made as a way of making that connection.
No, definitely. I was very glad to be able to do that. I think we gathered a video camera from someone there, and then I started making this video. Yeah, what was my contribution? And I remember that we were thinking now, how can we? Because we felt I totally agree with Chrissie. I couldn't put it in a better way than she did by saying we felt all we were in a special place with special people in a very particular moment, and that made it special. So the thing was, yeah, what shall I do? And then the idea to make films, to fix it for a moment, to fix the moment, like where I was and the people I was in contact with. And I thought the film is the things I can do. I don't want to say better, but maybe better than the others. So it was nice to see them again. By the way, these films, I didn't fix the sound yet, but yeah, it still breathes this special moment, I think. And
maybe Stefano, maybe you can talk about, since Renee mentioned the word reciprocity, what was the exchange between you being tasked to kind of try to represent this place and the activities, and the people there, having to be represented. How was that working? How did that work? And yeah, what did you get from that?
Yeah, but I think also I think time also dictates a bit, because I thought I don't have 1 month to to do this. I wanted to do something, so I wanted to really to finish it there because that was part of the experience. So I remember, try to bring in the images as much as possible. In information, the language was also kind of barrier in a way, or half a way, and so. And I still remember it so vivid in my eyes. This small room, you drawing, me editing on a laptop. It looked a bit improvised, but this is filmmaking. I mean, it doesn't matter what your the equipment doesn't have always to be state of the art. And but they felt really. Really present at the time by filming the people, by filming what they were doing, try to understand what they were doing, though and try to overcome any other kind of difficulties of limitation. Yeah.
I just was thinking about the idea of translation in relation to all of this, that translation and interface, because Chrissie talks about the tea, the sharing tea, and that becomes an interface of connecting to chat back into what Steve was talking about, or the camera is this interface that, we all know, regardless of language, how to perform in front of a camera and connect with it. People immediately smile if you get out your camera, it's just
Oh, wavy. no, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, you can really sense the engagement of the people, that are directly involved in the organization of the hall of this location, and that was really something that permeated the whole sort of our residency and made it very, very special. I really find it interesting, this idea of being part of what can be an archive of sorts. And if I reflect back on this moment, I would never imagined it as a sort of an archive, because it was so a moment that everyone felt very alive and very present. So it was like a literal grounding in the moment due to the circumstances, and that made that present very, very intense. I wondered how that can be archived as a living kind of experience of this experience in the place. But the word co-ownership or co-authorship that we discussed was definitely something that what was very nice. It wasn't intellectualized. I think it was really just embodied in the experience of everyone, busy with the same goal, to try to revitalize the space with all the resources that we had. And in this way, I think, I hope that it served as a sort of incentive for people to kind of wanting to sustain that sort of engagement.
Very well said, Cesare. Very well.
And now, because you all have had time, I'm going to go to Claire in a minute, but I just wanted to say that you all were in Sinop, so I want to kind of ask something about the distance. Now you have a distance from having been there, and Stefano, you talked about you hadn't seen the films in a while, and how does that kind of time, as time has passed, how does that make you feel? Also, Chrissie and Steve, feel free to jump in about that kind of distance and let's say the mental Polaroids you take with you.
Yeah, I think we were talking with Cesare a bit this afternoon, just before this, and maybe I repeat myself, but when I see the films back and I see these short films, and I still it breathes still how special and how how special was this moment we were there, and the cooperation between the people there in this space, and try to read and try to translate. And it's still, when we started talking this afternoon, which is still you kind of go there with your mind and this and then we went away, and then it was kind of finished. It was really like it was not only a closed space, like a small square, this building, but it was really like a bubble. We were into it, and then the sensation we felt, it was very. Yeah, and I hope through the film that it's still, when I see it, I still see the light. I still feel the energy that was involved at the moment. Yeah, a lot of energy. That's probably the best word. A lot of energy involved from yourself, also from the other one. Everything bumped back to you, and in a very almost physical way.
But if I may add, that the idea of this the kind of the impression of such an experience is also that you come with a certain set of expectations, and then you're immersed in a reality which is also the reality of of people having their occupation there and being very much sort of close in the proximity of the butcher, the tailor, the person selling sculptures, the artist, if I remember correctly. So it was on one end a sort of like what you would recognize as sort of an artistic project, but it had really the presence of the lived occupants in the space. So I just want to kind of say this because the word bubble makes seem that we were kind of
isolated
and closed, isolated, but we were actually in this soup of different people and the mediation that goes with that.
And Chrissie and Steve, so your Polaroids, let's say your mental memories, your Polaroids that you take with you. Can you talk a bit about that? Do you recognize what Stefano and Cesare are saying?
No, absolutely. And I think, I don't know if Cesare and Stefano remember, but I'm sure Steve does. We all became really engaged with a boat that someone was doing up and was about to be launched. And I don't know if you all remember it, all you guys, but watching, we really just were there while they were getting everything ready and preparing the last things, and then putting the boat on these things that were going to take it out to sea. And it felt like the whole place had stopped breathing almost for a moment until finally the boat launched. And it was such an emotional moment because, as you say, it was a very tense time. It was a very intense time. And somehow that picture, that video of the boat, I still have it very clearly in my mind of it taking off, and somehow it did succeed. It did manage to sail. And I think that was a really important moving moment for us. I mean, Steve, would you agree? Because we were both there together.
Yeah, well, I took photographs of it, but I can't show you them now. But another thing that really stayed with me, Polaroid-wise, was visiting the prison and finding out that there had been an American Air Force base in Sinop, I think long before we arrived, as part of the Cold War, and also that there was a nuclear power station that they were thinking of building, and there was a big protest about that. It was a very powerful time. I mean, it was obviously a very intense time because of the alleged coup, whether it happened or not, I don't know, or whether it was sort of fabricated or not, I don't know. But it did seem a very intense time. And I can remember these boats going, because our hotel looked over onto the harbour, and I can remember these boats going up and down with lights on them and music playing and stuff. And I think they were there to sort of support the government, or I'm not quite sure, or to thank the world that the coup hadn't succeeded or something, I don't know. But and when we left Sinop, we went to Istanbul and we met up with a doctor friend of mine who lived just very near us in Hackney in London, called Özgür Nehir. And he had actually been accused by the police in London. He'd been on a political demonstration, and he'd been accused by the police of throwing something at a policewoman. He hadn't done that. But he went to trial. I went in court and supported him. So I was just very aware of where the world is at the moment, and the terrible state that I'm afraid practically every country in the world is, apart from some in South America, we seem to be doing a bit better at the moment. But, thank God. But I mean, a lot of European countries, France, Poland, Germany even, not good things happening. Ukraine, not good things happening. And this seemed to be sort of indicative of that.
We've had discussions about the themes of, let's say, archiving, but also collaboration, participation. And one of the things that's so difficult about any archive is the fact that so much happens outside of what is archived. And, in a way, this, if anything, this is a glimpse and a fragment, a trace of so much. I want to come to Claire, who hasn't spoken, who was talking about, and this is it may seem odd to bring up the issue of play, but there is still this in this space of where we feel like so much is happening politically. Steve acknowledged that it's hard to breathe, but there's still this desire to reach out and connect with others. And I think Claire had a nice quote to think through that.
Yes, I think it's on my quotes on a kind of diagram that was. I don't know if you can put it up on the screen. But I haven't been to Sinop. I think I might be the only person here who hasn't been to Sinop. But I was involved with the process of the European Academy of Participation, where we were looking at the artist who wants to collaborate creatively with other people, with other artists and other people. And it's in my opinion, it's a very specific quality. And I'd just like to propose that it's the quality of play that we all have in common. Sinop seems to me an invitation to play, and the creation of the conditions in which playfulness can happen. Where people can play with each other and in a creative way, obviously. Seems to me the essence maybe of what I've understood from Sinop. From outside, from distance, and the idea of serious play or serious fun. I was in another project today, and the first comment they had a lot of fun. This is the prerequisite for the happening of any of the events. It seems to me it's kind of like a common thread, and it's also a common thread in people as well. It seems to be our exceptional quality in the end as a human species. I was thinking about what Jacqueline was saying earlier on, is that we have this capacity to play and to. I've written down something because I can never remember what I want to say. No, it's just about this is something which glues us all together as human beings. Most human beings, at least originally, had this possibility, and with time we sometimes lose it. And then if we can come back to our fun and our pleasure and our play, there seems to be maybe the more possibility that we could understand each other, that we could make connections with each other, that we could maybe finally live together. And so this is because I'm from the area of theatre. This is very important to me, and I think it's something which is in the heart of the project of Sinopale, and I also understand, or I would propose that the whole structure of the festival, from the people that organise the festival, like Neil and Mahir and all the team, is this possibility to invite people to come and play in Sinop. Thank you.
I like the drawing. Your drawing was found.
It's a drawing from a Feldenkrais practitioner called Tiffany Sankari. So it's not mine, but it's. And there's another. She has another one. If you'd like to go and look, she has another one called Not Play, which is all the elements of things that happen when we don't play. We don't listen to each other. We don't have any fun. We're miserable. so here, this is play.
One of the things that so I also wasn't in Sinopale. I had to stay and take care of our son, but I was supposed to go. So I'm one of the people who comes into the archive through this meeting online. But one of the things that in looking at the quotes people were bringing, I felt like I wanted to have something about storytelling. And I guess in thinking, Claire, about your desire for play, then we have connection and reciprocity. To a certain degree, I'd also say that in the discussion right now, there's been this thing of bearing witness, whether it's making witnessing a boat being cared for and launched, or being in that space, connection, reciprocity. But I come to, the reason why we get together is to know other people's stories. And and that doesn't necessarily mean verbal stories. Those can be visual stories. And I'm sure having that cup of tea, it's also interesting to think about that cup of tea where you remember how your mother was, and you think of that mother in relation to who you're speaking to. So there's this constant sense of relays or storytelling through the camera. I think about Stefano listening to stories that he could not understand, which is an interesting thing, and then someone has to translate those stories. Anyway, I guess to wrap this up, because I see we have 4 minutes in this archive that we're making right now, what would be, let's say, an indispensable entry? And you get one word, each of you, to bring into this archive from your experiences of Sinopale. Oh, Steve.
Well, I'm not wearing his shirt, but at the tailor, I had it on in the other meeting, but Lars recognized it. I didn't even remember that it was my, but and we also went and also we went to Hammam. Stefano, Cesare, and myself, and we got very nicely massaged. That's nice. If physical contact and physical being somewhere. That's all I have to say.
And you, Chrissie, what would be your entry into the archive?
I think my entry to the archives would be shared listening, because I was listening to the women up the street. They were listening to us. None of us understood each other, but somehow, as you said, Renée, real listening and watching was going on, and real understanding was going on. And at the end, the women hugged me, and someone put a scarf around me when I was cold, and it was very, very physical. And we didn't need language. We just found something in each other that mattered, and that's what I would put in it.
Cesare?
Well, Steve went first, unfortunately. So the best was a very good memory indeed for the archive in many different ways. I heard also that Taylor had passed away, so it's really even more valuable and precious as a memory. Maybe it's a little bit broad, but I just think the space itself was a very unique type of space, you know, and we talk about theater, and I remember Steve kind of trying to create momentum in these morning activities, and it really felt like a stage. And so I really hope that the space and its architecture and what the possibilities of the space can be preserved and hopefully, as part of a living archive, therefore not let astray, but actually really being sustained and fostered. It's really an amazing space. And Stefano? Muto.
Mhm.
Okay, anyway, sorry, excuse me. Yes, well, I got inspired by Chris. I was also thinking about Stephen, sorry. And I think my words would be contact, and because I really felt actually in contact while I was there, in contact myself with the others and the others with myself. I really, from the moment we had breakfast in the hotel in the morning, was really like, yeah, you felt part of it physically and also mentally. You felt you were in a group, and it's rare. I mean, I work with filming, and it's always a crew. You're not never alone, but it's a special the moment you feel this content, and I felt it in Sinop very clearly and very intense. So that would be, I think, my work. And before I saw, sorry, I'm using my phone for the first time in Zoom. I really apologize. I feel like I have to learn everything from scratch. But I saw many faces from Sinop that were there. So maybe I wanted to say hello, maybe because I have to go back to this birthday party also. And so I wanted a big hug for everyone who was in Sinop at the time. And I see all the faces.
So I guess we'll end with communication, listening, reciprocity, connection, and contact and play. Neil, do you want to?
I just wanted to say that somebody else talked about passion earlier on, and I thought that the people seem to me to be passionate players. When all the people that have spoken tonight seem to be passionate players.
Neil, do I hand the mic over to you, so to speak? Oh, am I here?
Thank you for your lovely contributions. I really went back to those days and remembered how playful it was with Chrissie's morning events. And actually, Renée asked Cesare to tell words, but he actually drew these lovely illustrations of each personality who was in HAL, and it is in our archive already with all the feelings behind. I remember how the film was made with the contributions of everyone, but especially of Chidams, who is now translating. He was like your personal translator, but not only, also your personal assistant, let's say, film assistant.
Yeah, very much.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me. I
Yes,
apologize for not mentioning her before.
It was really, everything was really lovely. And you have to, I mean, when you look from our perspective, we were under not only worried, but also under stress that we had to complete the project. And I don't know if you remember, but you were the only few people who accepted to come to Turkey. We had over 30 invitees, but they couldn't take the courage to come, but you did. Thank you very much. And so I bring in the word solidarity. Thank you for your solidarity and friendship, and also for being here tonight and reminding us for all these memories, nice memories. Thank you.